It was a bright Monday morning when Jada stood outside her new school gate. She was only 14, but her heart felt heavy like a stone. The school building looked big and beautiful, yet something inside her whispered that this day would be different. She took a deep breath and looked around. Students were laughing, chatting, running toward their friends. But when Jada walked through the gate, many heads turned. Some kids stared. Some smiled politely. Some just looked confused. Jada was the only black girl in the class. Her mother had moved to this small town for a new job. Jada wanted to feel excited. A new start, a new school, a new chance. But now, standing there, she felt like she didn't belong. Inside the classroom, the teacher smiled kindly. "Class, we have a new student today. Everyone, please welcome Jada." A few students said hello, but one boy in the back whispered something to his friend and they both laughed. Jada pretended not to hear, but her hands clenched around her notebook. The teacher asked everyone to introduce themselves. When it was Jada's turn, she said softly, "Hi, I'm Jada. I like art and I'm happy to be here." Her voice was calm, but inside her heart was racing. The teacher nodded. "Welcome, Jada." As the day went on, Jada tried to focus. She answered questions, smiled when spoken to, and worked hard. But she could still feel those quiet stares following her, like invisible eyes judging her for simply being there. At lunchtime, Jada sat alone at the corner table. She opened her lunchbox, pretending to be busy on her phone. A group of girls nearby were giggling. One of them whispered, "She talks funny." Another added, "Her hair looks weird." Jada's throat tightened. She wanted to say something, but the words got stuck, so she just smiled, pretending not to care. When she got home that evening, her mom asked, "How was your first day, sweetie?" Jada forced a smile. "It was good, Mom, just different." Her mom kissed her forehead. "Give it time, baby. You'll make friends soon." Jada nodded. She didn't want to worry her mother. Not after all the sacrifices she made for this new job, this new life. Later that night, Jada sat in front of her mirror. Her reflection stared back, brown skin, curly hair, big hopeful eyes. For a moment, she saw not a scared girl but someone strong. She whispered to herself, "You can do this, Jada, you're not weak." She smiled softly, believing those words just a little. The next morning, Jada felt more confident. She wore her favorite yellow sweater, the one her grandmother had given her, saying, "Yellow brings light wherever it goes." She walked into school with her head high. Everything seemed normal until she reached her locker. There, stuck to it with a piece of tape, was a note. The paper was folded neatly, like it had been planned. Jada opened it slowly. Her smile faded as she read the words written in black marker. "Go back where you came from." Her hands started shaking. The hallway was full of noise, students laughing, lockers slamming, but Jada heard nothing. Just those cruel words echoing in her mind. She looked around quickly, hoping no one was watching. But she saw the same boy from yesterday smirking at her from down the hall. His friend whispered something and they both burst into laughter. Jada felt her eyes burn, but she refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. She crumpled the note in her fist and shoved it into her pocket. Her heartbeat was loud like a drum. She took a deep breath and walked to class, pretending everything was fine. But inside, something had changed. The cheerful, hopeful feeling she had this morning was gone. In its place was a quiet fire, a mix of pain and anger, confusion and strength. When she sat at her desk, she noticed her art notebook lying open. She picked up her pencil and began to draw without thinking. Her hand moved fast, dark lines, heavy strokes, shadows, and light mixing together. When she finally looked at the paper, she saw she had drawn a girl standing alone in the rain, holding an umbrella against the storm. That girl was her. At that moment, Jada understood something deep inside. They wanted to make her feel small. They wanted her to break. But she wouldn't let them. Not today. Not ever. When the final bell rang, Jada walked out of school with her backpack on her shoulder. The wind was cold and the sky had turned gray. She looked up and whispered, "I will not let them win." The camera could show her walking down the empty street, the crumpled note still in her hand. She opens it one last time, looks at it calmly, then tears it into pieces and lets the wind take it away. The screen slowly fades to black with soft, sad music. Then a single line appears on screen. Sometimes, The first day isn't the hardest part. It's what comes after. The sun rose quietly the next morning, but Jada didn't feel its warmth. She sat on her bed, staring at her backpack. The torn pieces of that hateful note still lay on her desk, tiny white scars against the dark wood. She wanted to forget it. She wanted to believe that today would be better, but deep down a voice whispered, "It's not over." At school, Jada walked fast through the hallway, trying not to make eye contact. She could feel the looks again, cold, sharp, judging. When she opened her locker, her hands trembled slightly. For a moment she froze, expecting another note, but there was nothing. She let out a small sigh of relief. Then, behind her, she heard soft laughter. "Careful." "Jada," a boy's voice said mockingly. "Wouldn't want another message, right?" It was him, the same boy from yesterday. His smirk was cold, his eyes filled with something meaner than hate. It was pride. Jada didn't reply. She just closed her locker slowly and walked away, but the laughter followed her like a shadow. In class, she tried to focus, but the words on the board looked blurry. Her mind was somewhere else, replaying every whisper, every stare. When the teacher asked a question, she didn't hear it. "Jada?" The teacher called again. She blinked. "I'm sorry, ma'am." "What was the question?" Some kids giggled. One of them whispered, "Of course she doesn't know." Her cheeks burned. She wanted to disappear. The teacher frowned but didn't say anything. She moved on, and Jada lowered her head, hiding her tears behind her book. At lunch, she found a quiet spot behind the school gym. She sat alone, picking at her food. The laughter and chatter from the cafeteria sounded far away, like another world. Her phone buzzed. A message popped up from an unknown number. "You think you belong here? You don't." Jada's hands froze. Her heart dropped. She looked around. Who could be watching her? Someone had her number. Someone was playing a game, and she was the target. She locked her phone and threw it in her bag, trying to breathe. When she got home that day, her mom smiled warmly. "Hey baby, how was school?" Jada smiled weakly. It was fine. Her mom nodded, tired from work, and went to make dinner. Jada wanted to tell her everything, the notes, the messages, the whispers. But something inside her said no. Her mom had already given up so much. She didn't want to make her worry more. So instead, she went to her room, locked the door, and cried quietly into her pillow. Her tears soaked through, but she made no sound, because her pain had to stay hidden. That night, she opened her sketchbook again. She began to draw, her hands shaking, not from fear this time, but from anger. She drew a girl standing in the middle of a storm, surrounded by eyes, eyes that judged, eyes that hated. But the girl's face was calm. Her eyes looked forward, not down. Under the drawing, Jada wrote 3 words, "They can't break me." The next morning, something unexpected happened. Her art teacher, Ms. Riley, stopped by her desk. "Jada," she said gently, holding her sketchbook, "did you draw this?" Jada hesitated. "Yes, ma'am." Ms. Riley's eyes softened. "It's powerful, it speaks. Would you like to enter it into the school's art contest?" Jada froze. "Me, but no one would." "Talent doesn't need permission," Ms. Riley said firmly. "This piece has something real. People need to see it." Jada's heart beat faster. For the first time in days, she felt seen. Not for her color, but for her talent. She nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll do it." But the news spread fast, and not everyone was happy. At lunch, whispers began again. "She's just getting attention because she's different. She didn't even deserve it." Someone laughed. "She probably copied it from the internet." Jada heard every word. But this time she didn't cry. Instead, she whispered under her breath, "You'll see who I really am." That evening, while walking home, she noticed something strange. A car slowed down beside her. She couldn't see the driver. The windows were dark. The car followed her for a few seconds, then sped away. Her heart pounded. Was it her imagination? Or was someone really watching her? She hurried home, locking the door behind her. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house made her jump. She sat near the window, watching the moonlight fall across her sketchbook. She opened it and looked at her drawing, the girl in the storm. Then she whispered, "You're not afraid anymore, are you?" For the first time, she smiled. A real one. The next day, Jada walked into school with her sketchbook in hand. The hallway still buzzed with whispers, but this time she didn't lower her head. She passed the boy who mocked her. He looked surprised, maybe because she wasn't scared anymore. Jada didn't stop. She walked straight past him, shoulders back, eyes strong. She wasn't just the new girl now, she was something else, something stronger. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning, because sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is the sound of a storm forming. The school art contest was just 1 week away, and for the first time, Jada felt a spark inside her, a tiny flame of purpose. Her teacher, Ms. Riley, had told her, "Your art speaks truth. Jada, let it be heard." Those words echoed in her mind like a song she didn't want to forget. But truth wasn't easy to show, not when the world wanted her to stay quiet. At home, her small room had become her studio. Paints, brushes, and broken pencils lay across her desk. The air smelled of color and courage. Every night after school, Jada painted until her fingers hurt. She didn't just paint pictures, she painted feelings. Each stroke was a memory. Each color, a story. The red was her anger, the blue was her sadness, the gold was her hope. On the canvas, she painted a young black girl standing in the middle of a crowd. Everyone around her was gray, faceless, cold, silent, but the girl glowed with color. Her eyes looked straight ahead. She wasn't scared. She wasn't silent. She was unbreakable. Jada didn't know it yet, but this painting would change everything. The next morning, she carried her artwork carefully to school. Whispers followed her down the hall again, but this time they felt quieter, like they were losing power. When she reached class, she found something strange on her desk, a small folded paper. She froze. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, there was a simple message written in messy handwriting. "You think a painting will make you belong?" Her chest tightened, but she smiled. Not a scared smile, a strong one. She folded the paper again, tucked it into her sketchbook, and said quietly, "Let's see what they say after they see the truth." During lunch, she sat with her art supplies, adding final touches to her piece. Ms. Riley passed by and stopped. "It's beautiful, Jada, but I can see something more behind it. What does it mean to you?" Jada looked at her painting for a long moment. "It means," she paused, "I'm still standing. Even when they try to break me." Ms. Riley nodded slowly. "That's real strength. Never lose it." But just as Jada felt encouraged, she noticed a group of students nearby whispering again. One of them, the same boy who had bullied her before. He was taking a picture of her painting with his phone. When Jada caught him, he smirked. "Relax," he said. "It's just art, right?" She didn't answer, but something in her eyes made him look away. That night, Jada received a new message on her phone. This time it wasn't words, and it was a photo, her painting, ripped in half. Her breath caught in her throat. Her real painting was still safe in the art room, locked away. So how did someone get that picture? Her heart raced. Someone was trying to scare her again. But instead of fear, she felt anger rise like fire in her chest. She whispered to herself, "You can tear a picture, but you can't tear my spirit." She decided she wouldn't hide anymore. The next morning, she walked straight into Ms. Riley's class and said, "Can I change my art submission? I want to make something new." For 3 days, she barely slept. She worked in silence, painting something darker, stronger, more powerful. This time, it wasn't just about her. It was about every black girl who was ever told she didn't belong. The new painting showed a girl standing in front of a wall full of hateful words. "Go back, you don't belong, stay quiet." But the girl in the center was painting over those words, covering them with bright gold. The gold looked like sunlight, burning through the hate. When she finished, Jada looked at it and whispered, "This is resistance." The day of the contest arrived. The gym was filled with colorful paintings from every student, landscapes, flowers, portraits. But Jada's painting stood in the center, glowing under the lights. People stopped to look. They didn't laugh this time. They didn't whisper. They stared, silent, almost humbled. Even the boy who had mocked her before stood frozen, his eyes wide. Jada stood in the corner, watching. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but pride. When the judges came by, they whispered among themselves. Ms. Riley smiled quietly, her eyes shining. Then, after what felt like hours, the principal walked onto the stage. He held the microphone and said, "This year's art contest winner is Jada Thompson for her piece titled The Art of Resistance." The crowd gasped. Some clapped. Others stayed silent. But Jada didn't hear any of it. She walked up to the stage, her hands trembling, her eyes wet. She looked at her painting, at all the colors, all the pain, all the strength. And she realized something powerful. They had tried to break her with hate, but she had answered with art, and her art was louder than their cruelty. As she walked home that evening, the sun was setting. The sky looked like her painting, red, gold, and blue mixed together. She smiled to herself, whispering, "You tried to stop me, but I turned your hate into beauty." But just as she reached her house, she saw something that made her stop. A small white envelope sat on her doorstep. Her name was written on it, in the same messy handwriting as before. Her hands went cold. She picked it up slowly. Inside, there was only one line. "You don't know what's coming next." The screen fades to black. Soft music plays. Jada's voice echoes. "They can't break what's already stronger than fear." The next morning, Jada woke up with a strange feeling in her chest and a mix of fear and strength. The white envelope from last night still sat on her desk. She hadn't told anyone about it. Not even her mom. She kept reading the line again and again. "You don't know what's coming next." The words were short, but they felt heavy, like a storm cloud hanging over her. Still, Jada told herself one thing: "I'm not running anymore." At school, whispers followed her as always, but something was different now. Her art contest win had changed things. Some students looked at her with respect, others with jealousy, and a few with silent hate. She walked through the hallway calmly, even when she could feel eyes burning into her back. When she reached her locker, she hesitated for a second. She opened it slowly. Nothing. No notes. No threats. But when she turned around, she noticed something odd. The same boy, Evan, watching her again from across the hall. He looked nervous this time, not proud. His eyes darted away quickly when she looked back. Something wasn't right. Later that day, during lunch, Jada went to the art room, her favorite place, her safe place, but when she entered, the room was dark and quiet. Her painting, The Art of Resistance, that had been hanging on the wall after the contest, was gone. Her heart dropped. The frame was still there, but the canvas had been cut out. Stolen. Who would do this? She whispered to herself. Then she saw it, another note, taped to the empty frame, in black marker, same messy handwriting. "Beautiful things don't last." Jada's hands shook. Someone wasn't just bullying her anymore, and someone wanted to destroy her. She took a deep breath and decided. Something right then. No more silence. That evening, she stayed after school and went to see Ms. Riley. "Someone took my painting," she said quietly. Ms. Riley frowned, shocked. "What, when?" "I found this note." Jada handed it over. Ms. Riley read it, her eyes darkening. "Jada, you need to tell the principal." But before they could go, the janitor entered. He looked tired but kind. "I saw a student in here earlier," he said. Tall boy, brown jacket. "Left just before you came." Jada's mind flashed back. Evan wore a brown jacket. Her heart started racing. Next morning, Jada entered the classroom. Everyone was talking, loud. Laughing was, but she could feel the tension. Then she noticed her painting, taped to the blackboard, but someone had drawn over it. Ugly black lines scratched across her work, and across the face of the girl in the painting were the words, "Not so strong now." Gasps filled the room. Jada stood frozen, her heart pounded, her eyes burning, but she didn't cry. She walked to the front of the class slowly, silently. The teacher walked in just as Jada touched the torn paper. "Who did this?" she asked sharply. No one answered. Jada turned and faced the class. Her voice was calm but powerful. "Whoever did this, thank you." The class went silent. She continued, "You just showed everyone what hate looks like. But you also showed what courage looks like, because I'm still standing here." The teacher looked stunned. Then suddenly, from the back of the room, Evan stood up. His face pale. "It was me," he said quietly. "I did it." Gasps filled the room again. "Why, Evan?" the teacher asked. He looked down. "Because I thought she didn't belong here. Because I was angry she got attention. I didn't think it would go this far." Jada's eyes filled with tears, and not of weakness, but something else, pity. She said softly, "You didn't have to destroy me to feel big." He didn't look up. The principal was called. Evan was suspended immediately, but Jada didn't smile. There was no joy in revenge. Instead, she felt something strange. Peace. That evening, Jada sat in her room, replaying the day in her head. She looked at the damaged painting. Now in her backpack it was ruined, lines, scratches, words all over it. But instead of throwing it away, she took out her paints. She began painting again, right over the damage. She didn't hide the scars. She turned them into art. Every black line became a new color. Every insult became part of the story. When she finished, the painting looked more powerful than before. The girl in the center was now surrounded by fire, strong, bright, alive. Jada smiled softly. "They can destroy my art," she whispered, "but they can't destroy my soul." The next day, Ms. Riley asked Jada if she wanted to speak at the school assembly, to talk about what happened. Jada hesitated at first, but then she nodded. "Yes, I'll do it." The auditorium was full. Students whispered. Teachers watched quietly. Jada walked to the microphone, holding her painting in her hands. She looked at everyone and said, "This was once a painting of hope. Then someone tried to destroy it. But I didn't throw it away, because that's what they want. They want us to give up." She paused, her voice steady. "But every time they tear us down, we rise stronger. That's what being unbreakable means." The room was silent. Then, slowly, applause began, soft at first, then louder, until the whole hall was filled with clapping. Jada smiled, tears in her eyes. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. But as the crowd clapped, the camera could pan to the back of the room, to a dark corner, where a phone screen lit up. A new message was being typed. "You think it's over, Jada? The real story hasn't even started." The camera zooms in on the message. The screen fades to black. Jada's voice echoes, "You can break my art, but not my voice." The world outside Jada's window was quiet, but inside her heart, a storm was roaring. It had been 2 weeks since she faced the school and spoke her truth. 2 weeks since Evan confessed. 2 weeks since that last message. The real story hasn't even started. At first, Jada tried to ignore it. She told herself it was over. But deep down, she knew storms don't end that easily. The fear returns one night. Her phone buzzed again. A picture appeared. It was her house, taken from the street. Under it were 2 words. "Still watching." Her hands went cold. She ran to the window. The street was empty, only the soft hum of a streetlight. She whispered, "Why me?" She didn't tell her mom. She didn't want her to panic, but the fear began to live with her, following her everywhere like a shadow she couldn't escape. The silence grows at school. She smiled less. She stopped sitting near windows. Her friends noticed, but she brushed it off. One afternoon, Ms. Riley stopped her after class. "Jada, you've been quiet lately. Are you okay?" Jada forced a small smile. "I'm fine, ma'am. Just tired." But her tired eyes told a different story. At home, she locked her door every night. She drew the curtains tight and she prayed for morning light. The breaking point days later, she entered the art room again. Her newly restored painting was there, hanging proudly. It had survived everything. She smiled weakly, touching its corner. Then she noticed something written on the wall beside it. In red paint. "Unbreakable? Let's see." Her breath caught. The color looked too dark, too real. Ms. Riley rushed in moments later and gasped, "Oh my God, Jada." The school called security. They promised to investigate. But Jada could tell. No one really understood how scared she felt. That night, she sat on her bed hugging her sketchbook. She whispered to herself, "They won't stop until I break. Then she looked up at her reflection and said, "But I won't." The next few days blurred together. Messages kept coming. Sometimes just a single word. Soon. Sometimes an image. Her locker, her street, the art room. Jada stopped painting. Her sketchbook stayed closed. Even her colors looked dull now. Her mother noticed her silence. "Jada, talk to me. What's wrong?" Jada tried to smile. "Nothing, Mom, I'm okay." But that night, when her mom fell asleep, Jada sat on the floor and cried. Silent tears. The kind that never end. The letter, the next morning. A letter arrived at the school office. No name, no address. It was for Jada. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside were the same words she'd seen before. "Beautiful things don't last." And below them, a small printed photo of her and her mom walking home. Her stomach twisted. Someone wasn't just teasing her anymore. Someone was watching her life. She ran to Ms. Riley and showed her the letter. Ms. Riley's face turned pale. "Jada, this is serious. We're going to the principal right now." They did. The principal promised to involve the police. But fear doesn't wait for help. It grows faster than comfort. The mirror moment. That night, Jada looked at herself in the mirror again. The same mirror from her first day. She looked older now, harder, like the world had stolen her peace. She whispered, "Who are you now, Jada? A victim or a fighter?" Her reflection didn't answer, but then something clicked inside her, a memory of her grandmother's words. "They can't break you unless you let them." Jada wiped her tears. "No more running," she whispered. "If they want to see what unbreakable looks like, I'll show them." The plan the next morning. Jada went back to school with a plan. She carried her camera, small, hidden in her bag. If someone was following her, she'd catch them. During lunch, she sat in the courtyard pretending to draw. She felt it, that same cold stare from somewhere behind her. She looked up just in time to see a shadow move past the art room window. Her heart raced. She stood up quietly and followed down the hallway. Around the corner, the footsteps grew faster, then stopped. The art room door was slightly open. She pushed it slowly. Inside, a tall figure stood near her painting, camera phone in hand. "Who are you?" Jada said firmly. The figure froze, then turned. It wasn't Evan. It wasn't any student she recognized. It was one of the school staff members, the assistant janitor. Jada's breath caught. "You?" He smiled weakly. "You shouldn't have won that contest. My son worked hard and your son," she whispered. "Yes, Evan. You ruined his life." Her blood ran cold. "You've been sending those messages?" He stepped closer. "I just wanted you to feel what you made him feel. Small." Jada backed away slowly. "You can't scare me anymore," she said. "You already lost," he glared. "You think so?" Then suddenly Ms. Riley's voice echoed from behind the door. "Step away from her." The man froze. Teachers rushed in, security following. He was taken away. Jada stood shaking. But she didn't cry this time, the calm after that night. Jada sat under the same streetlight where she once felt afraid. She looked up at the stars. Quiet, steady, beautiful. She whispered, "They tried to make me fear my own voice, but fear only lasts if you feed it." Her sketchbook lay open beside her. She began to draw again. Not pain this time, but peace. The wind blew softly across the page, lifting the corner of her new drawing. A girl standing in sunlight, holding a paintbrush like a sword. Jada smiled. "The storm is still inside me," she said softly. "But now I know how to dance in it." The screen fades to black. A faint heartbeat sound plays. Slow, steady, then her voice. "They tried to break me with fear, but fear only built my fire." The day of the exhibition arrived, but the sky looked angry. Dark clouds rolled over the city, and thunder whispered in the distance. It was the kind of weather that made people stay inside. But Jada wasn't afraid of storms anymore. She stood in front of the school gates, holding her art folder close to her chest. Her heart was racing, but her face was calm. Too calm, like the still moment before a wave crashes. Today wasn't just about art. It was about truth. It was about her. The setup. The school hall smelled of paint, wood, and nervous energy. Tables lined up neatly, each filled with students' projects, science models, crafts, essays. But at the center of the room stood a large black cloth covering something tall and square. That was Jada's space. Her exhibition's title was painted in white on a board beside it. Unbreakable. When students passed by, they whispered, some curious, some skeptical, "She's doing it again, after everything that happened? She's brave. Or crazy." Jada heard them, but she didn't look up. She was fixing the last detail on her main painting, her masterpiece. It was a huge canvas showing a black girl standing alone in a storm, holding a broken brush that still glowed with gold light. The caption under it read, "They broke my brush, not my spirit." The visitors arrive. The principal entered first, followed by teachers, parents, and students. Camera flashes started going off. Reporters had shown up too. Word about Jada's story had spread. Ms. Riley stood beside her and whispered, "Are you ready, Jada?" Jada nodded slowly. "I've been ready my whole life." The microphone crackled. The principal announced, "Today, we open our annual student exhibition, and one of our students has shown extraordinary courage and creativity." All eyes turned to Jada. She stepped up to the mic. Her voice trembled at first, but then it grew steady. "I painted pain," she said softly, "because I wanted the world to see what it feels like to be judged. Before you speak, but I also painted hope, because I want every girl who looks like me to know she's not alone." Silence filled the hall. Then, she slowly pulled down the black cloth. The reveal gasps echoed through the room. Behind the cloth were 7 paintings, each one telling a chapter of her journey. The first whisper, a crowd of shadowed faces laughing at a single bright figure. The note, a locker door covered in cruel words, with a heart glowing faintly behind it. The mirror, a girl's reflection split between tears and a quiet smile. The storm, lightning over a small house, one window still lit. The fear, black paint dripping over white wings. The fire, a hand breaking through darkness. And finally, unbreakable, the girl standing strong in golden light. Every painting was full of color, emotion, and truth. It wasn't just art. It was her soul on the wall. The suspense. The crowd was silent for a long time. Then someone began to clap. Slowly, unsure, another joined, then another. Soon, the whole hall was filled with applause. Jada looked around, shocked, but not everyone clapped. At the back of the room, she saw Evan, the boy who once mocked her, standing with his arms crossed. When their eyes met, he didn't look angry anymore. He looked ashamed. He walked closer, quietly, until he was right in front of her painting. "I didn't know," he said softly. "I didn't understand how bad it was." Jada's eyes softened. "You don't have to understand everything," she said. "Just don't repeat it." Evan nodded, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry." The twist as the applause continued, Ms. Riley came running with her phone. "Jada, look." On social media, photos of her paintings had already gone viral. Hashtags like Unbreakable Jada and #Stand with Jada were trending. People from other schools were sharing her story. Celebrities had reposted her artwork with messages of support. Her eyes filled with tears, and not of sadness this time, but disbelief from being mocked in silence to being heard by thousands. But then, just as things felt perfect, someone shouted from the crowd, "Look at the news." The room went still. A headline flashed on a parent's phone. "Local teacher arrested for harassment of student." It was him, the janitor who had been caught stalking her. Everyone looked at Jada. The tension was heavy, but she didn't flinch. She stood tall, voice steady. "They tried to silence me," she said softly, "but truth always speaks louder." The audience erupted in applause again, this time louder, prouder, real. The aftermath when the event ended. A small girl, maybe 10 years old, came up to her. She was shy, holding a small notebook. "Hi," the girl whispered. "My name's Layla. I get bullied too. But today I saw your paintings, and I think maybe I can be strong like you." Jada knelt down and smiled warmly. "You already are, Layla." The little girl smiled back and ran off. clutching her notebook tightly. The night sky later that evening, Jada walked home alone. The storm had passed. The clouds had opened up, showing a clear sky full of stars. She looked up and whispered, "Grandma, I did it. I didn't break." The camera zooms out, showing her walking down the street, her bag full of paintbrushes and hope. A soft voiceover plays. Pain made her strong. Fear made her brave, and love made her unbreakable. Fade to black. The sun rose slowly over the city, painting the sky with soft gold. But inside Jada's heart, the fire still burned bright, not the fire of anger anymore, but the fire of purpose. It had been 3 months since the exhibition, 3 months since her story spread beyond her school, beyond her city and across the country. Everywhere she went, people whispered her name. That's Jada, the unbreakable girl. But Jada didn't want to be remembered for her pain. She wanted to be remembered for her strength. The invitation, one evening, as she sat sketching by the window, her phone buzzed. It was an email from a local university. "We'd be honored if you could speak at our youth empowerment conference next week. We believe your story can inspire thousands." Her hands trembled. She wasn't sure if she was ready to stand on a stage again, to speak in front of strangers, to relive every wound. But deep down, she knew the world needed to hear her truth. She took a deep breath and whispered, "I'll do it." The flashback the night before the event. Jada couldn't sleep. Memories flooded back. The cruel whispers, the note on her locker, the fear in her mother's eyes, the man behind the threats. She closed her eyes tightly, as if she could erase it all, but then another memory appeared, her grandmother's voice. "They can't break you unless you let them." She smiled softly. Maybe everything had happened for this moment, to teach her not just how to survive, but how to lead. The speech. The auditorium was huge. Hundreds of faces staring at the stage. Cameras, microphones, lights, all pointed at her. Jada walked to the podium slowly. Her hands shook, but her eyes were steady. When she finally spoke, her voice was clear and full of quiet power. "I used to think silence was safe," she began, "that if I stayed quiet, the pain would fade. But silence only fed their hate. The moment I spoke, I found my freedom." The room was silent. You could hear hearts beating. I faced racism, threats, and fear. But I also found kindness, courage, and love, and now I stand here not as a victim, but as proof that no storm lasts forever. Tears glistened in the audience. Some people stood up and clapped. Others simply sat, stunned, realizing they'd never seen such power in such gentle words. Jada smiled and said her final line. "They tried to break me with hate, but I learned love is stronger than hate, and hope is louder than fear." The crowd rose in a standing ovation. Flashes from cameras lit up the room like stars. The offer, after the event. A woman approached her, a TV journalist. "I've been following your story," she said warmly. "We're producing a documentary on young voices fighting discrimination. Would you like to be part of it?" Jada hesitated. She had never imagined herself on TV. But then she thought about all the young girls like Layla, the one who said Jada's art made her brave. "Yes," she said finally. "If my voice can help one more person, I'll share it." The shadows returned that night. As she walked home, she felt it again. That strange quiet, like the air holding its breath. She looked over her shoulder. Nothing. But when she reached her front door, there was an envelope waiting. No name. No stamp. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single photo, her painting, Unbreakable, hanging in a gallery she'd never seen before. Under it were the words, "Your story doesn't belong to you anymore." Her chest tightened. Was it another threat? Or a warning? She showed it to her mother, who frowned deeply. "Jada, maybe someone is trying to scare you again." But Jada shook her head slowly. "No, Mom. This is different. Someone's displaying my art, without asking." The next day, they traced the address on the back of the photo. It was an art gallery downtown. The discovery, when Jada entered, her heart almost stopped. There, in the center of the room, hung her painting, Unbreakable. Below it, a small plaque read, "Artist, Unknown. Title: The Girl Who Fought Back. A tall man in a suit approached her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "A student found it online and brought it here. It's inspired hundreds already." Jada looked at him firmly. "It's mine," she said. "I painted it." The man's eyes widened. "You're Jada?" She nodded. He smiled. "Then you must come tomorrow night. We're hosting a charity auction. All funds go to anti-racism education. And your painting, it's the centerpiece." Jada stood silent for a moment. Her painting, once born from pain, now helping others fight the same battle. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll be there." The legacy night. The gallery was full the next evening. People from different races, backgrounds, and stories gathered under one roof, united by art and hope. As the auction began, Jada's painting drew the highest bid of the night. When it sold, the crowd clapped for her. But she didn't smile for fame. She smiled because her pain had finally built something good. Later, the host called her up. "Would you like to say a few words?" Jada stepped to the mic. Her eyes glistened in the light. "I once thought my story ended when I was bullied, but now I know. That was just the beginning. Because when one voice stands up, others rise too. My story isn't mine anymore. It belongs to every person who ever felt invisible." The crowd rose to their feet. The final scene. That night, Jada stood outside the gallery, staring up at the moon, the same moon that once watched her cry, now shining on her victory. She whispered, "Thank you, Grandma. You were right. They never broke me." She walked away slowly, her reflection glowing in the city lights. Behind her, a poster hung in the gallery window. "The Unbreakable Spirit, an Exhibition of Courage," by Jada Williams. Her voice echoed one last time as the screen faded to black. "They threw stones at me. I built a path with them.